You can see here, like, you know, in China, they're so good that you can just pick people out and know something about them.
길거리에 지나가는 사람들을 선택하기만 해도 그의 이름과 생년월일, 통장 잔해까지 보인다니 이야기만 들어도 섬찟한 게 사실입니다. 그런데 이런 일이 중국에서는 실제로 벌어지고 있습니다. 개인의 자유를 침해하는 게 아니냐며 들고 일어설 법도 한데 중국인들은 이를 당연하게 여긴다고 하는데요. 이런 중국의 상황을 미지근한 물에 들어가 있는 개구리로 표현한 중국 학생의 이야기와 각 나라의 자유와 투표에 대한 개념 이해의 차이를 함께 살펴보시죠.
In her country is the king. It's a monarchy. It's a fairly small country, right? Like, I mean, it's a large country, but there aren't that many people because it's mostly desert.
Yeah, like compared to the US, it's
very small.
Big,
Yeah. The king and the people around the king are deciding on the rules. So there's no elections to speak of. I mean, if there are elections, they're sham elections, right? I mean, how much say do you have in the government and what goes on in the government, the rules? Hold the mic really close.
I don't think like us as citizens like of Saudi Arabia, like we don't have like opportunity to vote. I don't think like that's a problem. Like that's like how it's been since forever.
Yep.
And like we're used to it, but like once I got to the US, like I noticed, like there's something such as voting. And like even in the hub, sometimes they're like, do you wanna vote? I'm like, no, I'm not a citizen of the United States, so I don't know. They're like, oh, okay. Like I'm just there to like get the free food that they have to like vote.
Yeah.
And then just like leave.
What matters is there are some rules in your society, like rules here, like drive on the right side of the road. You all drive on the right side of the road, right? Don't break the speed limit too much, right? Don't be drifting in the middle of the city streets because drifting is probably a big thing. There's certain things you do and you can't do, like you need rules. Everyone needs rules, like we need rules. So for example, we have rules about attendance. If we didn't have rules, you all would just do whatever you want to do. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. Like, we're going to follow some rules here. And so every society needs some rules. So you have this king, the monarch, and this group of advisors, which is, fairly significant, and they make these rules.
Yeah. And I think like most of us, like as Saudi citizens, are like satisfied with the rules. Like I don't see anyone like talking like negatively about them, at least like from my opinion and like the people around me.
Okay, so it's like no, people aren't talking about, so this is King Salman on the right, who's going to be stepping down soon, am I right?
I don't know, maybe.
Well, he's pretty old, so. And that's his son on the left, MBS. The crown prince, this is his oldest son. So he'll become the new king. And okay, so and the president has a network of people around him who is making the rules.
Yes.
And the rules are implemented by a vast bureaucracy, which in your country you call the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. Okay, here we don't call it that. There they call it the CCP, okay? But it's the vast bureaucracy. It's just you're connected to the CCP. And people in the CCP are appointed, they're hired, and they're sometimes elected.
Yeah, sometimes, yes.
Sometimes elected.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me, how does it work there? Like you...
So, like, there's one question that you asked her before, like how much we think we have influence on like some of the decisions on maybe like some laws or elections or whatever happening in the government. Like my personal experiences are like there's not much that we can influence on maybe a law can be passed or a certain individual is going to be in what position. And like so what I'm being like what my experience is that people in the government get to a certain position because of them knowing a lot of people that will support them in the government or have a lot of money that can and could do that. Yeah.
Which is similar to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Which is similar
So-
to the U.S., by the way. But like this is, some cameras. Like, we think like we have cameras. You think you have cameras in Saudi Arabia? Check it out in China, man. Like cameras everywhere.
Yeah, so, well, I've talked about this in my Word in Conversation already, but there's an analogy that I use that we used in China. Like, so when you want to eat a frog, when you want to boil a frog, you first put it in warm water instead of just hot boil one. At first, the frog will not think there's a lot of danger, but when he realized, then it's already too late. So that's why, the surveillance thing has been slowly around
Yeah.
since we were born.
Yeah, before you were born.
Yeah, well,
so,
even
yeah.
before we were born, but it just got even better and more.
In China, they're so good that you can just pick people out and know something about them. Like, so you're walking across the street here in State College, and someone can just be watching and know something about each person, man. Okay? I mean, it's not as far-ranging as it could be, or maybe will be, but who knows, right? But this is somewhere about where we're at. Okay?
Yeah. Even especially during COVID, even if you are wearing a mask or something, they can still have facial recognition and know who you are and your name, date of birth, even how much you have in your bank account and something like that.
Yeah. Really interesting is, so these two people, they're watching carefully what they say. This is out on YouTube. They could say the wrong thing, and someone's going to be contacting them saying like, hey, why did you say this or why did you say that? That's just the nature of being part of their society. So now the question becomes, that I'm wondering is like, well, is there anything you really want to say that you can't say? Or is it like, yeah, I can't say a lot of stuff, but I don't really need to say that anyway. Like he can say, Joe right here can say, yeah, my president, Joe Biden, he's an idiot, right? Go ahead, just say it.
Let's go, Brandon.
All right, exactly. He can say that, but they can't say that. There are things they can't say, or they will get a phone call.
Some comment that I say might seem like I'm not very patriotic, and they will grab that idea that you are not patriotic and post it somewhere and say like, he's not a real Chinese. Like he's one of those.
Like a traitor.
Yes.
Traitor to the.
Yes.
Yeah. Or what about other people who would say, you're not speaking critically enough. Like you should take this opportunity. Other Chinese who would say, you should take this opportunity and tell people, like you should speak the truth.
Yeah, like people might think that there are a lot of stuff that we cannot do in China because of this government, because of surveillance or whatever. But we can do a lot of things. Like
Okay, hang on. Don't go there yet. Go to the next slide. Here's your president, Xi Jinping, right? Who, by the way, just, he had you get 5 years. You got another 5
term,
years.
yeah.
He and his advisors just decided, hey, they're going to just give him another 5 years. So he just started his 11th year. They just changed the Chinese constitution to give him another 5 years. So here's your party congress, happens every 5 years, right? These are people making decisions. This is a lot of it's like 5,000 people or something, right?
Yeah, so representatives from all of the provinces and a lot of the cities and some local.
Right? So it's like we have Democrats and Republicans, and there you just got one party.
Yeah, maybe there's only this group.
Yeah.
And there's no different groups like here that we have.
Okay, so you can't do those things. So you're going to follow your life. You have a different life back there. And how is that life compared to your life here?
I haven't been back home for almost 4 years now, so it's going to take some time for me to adapt to the way of living back home. But I would say life back home and life over here in the U.S. have both their benefits and some of their downsides. and there's something that I can get in China that I can't get here, like very nice food, cheap, or some like really cheap stuffs.
중국인 학생의 말처럼 각 나라에는 장단점이 존재합니다. 이 강의를 보고 나니 언론의 자유, 민주주의가 있는 한국의 장점은 무엇이 있나 곰곰이 따져보게 됐는데요.
We were really pretty poor, and I didn't take school seriously, and so I was really a C student. I mean, I really was not. And in high school.
펜실베니아 주립대 교수인 샘 리처드는 한류 연구학자로 세계적인 명성을 자랑합니다. 그의 수업만 해도 매해 수백 명의 학생이 듣고 있으며 학생들의 열렬한 지지를 받고 있죠. 그런데 사실 그가 학업에는 뜻이 없었던 낙제생이었다는 사실 알고 계시나요? 한국을 방문한 샘 리처드 교수. 그는 고려대학교 사회학과 학생들을 찾아가 고등학교 수업은 빼먹기 일쑤였으며 단 한 번도 학업에 뜻을 둔 적 없던 자신이 교수가 된 이유에 대해 털어놓습니다. 강의 영상 원본은 고려대학교 채널입니다. 아래 고정 댓글 링크를 통해 참고해주세요.
Really honored to be here, and thank you for inviting me. It's my honor of who I am and how I got to be to do the kinds of things that I do. Okay, so first, this is me, and that's my father. And so first off, from a very young age, I was very unconventional. You see that I'm dressed in pink, and so in the United States, I don't know in Korea, but in the U.S., they don't dress boys in pink. Today, we used to, though, by the way. Pink was the color of masculinity in the West. And then it changed somewhere in the early 1900s, and it became blue. But boys always wore pink, which is, again, this is one of those sociology things that, if you dig into the world, it's always more complex than we imagine it to be. And I had a doll and played with dolls. And my father was older when I was born, but then my father died when I was 9. And that really changed my life. So my father worked in a factory, and he never went to high school. He really believed in science, and he believed in reading. And so in my life, there were always books in the house. And I didn't read them, but I saw them, and it gave me a vision of the importance of books. And but when he died, I was on my own, and I had no guidance. And so I started working. I was buying my own school clothes at the age of 13. We were really pretty poor, and I didn't take school seriously. And so I was really a C student. I mean, I really was not. And in high school, I didn't study. I was a bad boy. I didn't ever go to jail, so I'm okay. But I didn't take school. I never looked at my report card. It didn't matter. I graduated in probably the lowest 1/3 of my high school class. And then I went to college. And in going to college, I applied because I didn't know it was very inexpensive. I applied to the only university that I could apply to, and they let me in. And I later found out that they let everybody in. So if you had money, you could go. So it was not like Korea University, and there were no tests. And well, I should say this. I did take, we have, in the U.S., we have the SAT and the ACT, and I'm sure many of you took both of those. But I scored in the 51st percentile, so I'm above average. And really, that's for me, that's important. I want to be above average, so on many things. So I'm above average as a teacher. I'm above average as a lecturer. I just want to be above average. I don't want to be the best. I don't want to be below average. Like in high school, I would skip school, and I would go hide in the library, and I would skip classes, and I would go hide in the library, and I would read. Because my classes were boring and not very interesting. They probably were interesting, but I didn't understand how to really learn. And so, but I would sit in the back of the library and I would read. And I read all sorts of books. I would go to the library as a kid, and I would bring home a stack of books like this, and I would read them, and then I would, go get another set of books. But my grades, I got C's and D's, you understand. I think, I don't remember because I didn't look at my report card, but then one day, I was 20 years old. I had transferred to what we have as a 2-year college. And I said, well, I'm never going to get a 4-year degree. Maybe I'll get a 2-year degree. And I had already started a business, and I thought, like, maybe I can just have something, right? I have 4 classes. I stopped going to 3 of them. I had 1 more class. And I said, you know, if I stop going now, I will never go back to college. This will be the end of my college possibility, right? And so I was on my way to class, and I saw the library, and I said, I don't feel like going to class. And I went in the library, and I started looking up and down, and this is what I would do. I would go to the library, and you should try this sometime. You know, on a Friday night or a Saturday night or some night when you would normally be out with your friends, go to the library and just spend time just looking at books you would never look at. And it's magical. And so I was walking around and I saw something, and I pulled it out, and it was a journal about prisons. And I started looking at it. And for the first time in my life, I said, I think this looks really interesting. Like, this is really, it's just something clicked. And I said, I could do that. And I walked over to the wall, and there was a phone on the wall, and I picked up the phone, and I called the social work department because it was a social work journal. And I said, hey, can I speak with somebody? And they said, yeah, come over right now. So I went over, I signed up for social work, for sociology and social work. Went home, I told my bandmates, because I was in a band and we were playing all the time, and I said, I'm quitting the band in 5 weeks. I went to my work and I said, I'm quitting work in 5 weeks. And I became a student for the first time in my life. Like, I did nothing but study. And I went to the university in the morning, and I would stay all day and all night, and I would read in the library, and I was getting C's because I didn't have skills. You know, I couldn't write, but I could read, and I was a really creative thinker because I was reading. My whole life I had been reading books from all over the world, but I didn't have skills. I didn't know how to take a test. So, but one day in one class I got a B, and I said, oh, a B. Okay, I can do this. And then I kept working, and I got a D and a C, and then I got an A. And I said, it was the first A I ever got in my life, except in high school I got an A in typing. So I'm really good at typing. And and then I just kept going. And I woke up. I mean, I said, I am going to understand the world. And this is all I want to do. And so I became a student. Now, mind you, so I was now 20 years old. And so that started my journey. And I've never stopped. And the good thing about me, or good thing about this journey, is that I meet many people, many young people, who by the time they get into my classes, and they're really good students, but they're burned out because they have spent their entire lifetimes working so hard. When I started at 20, I had so much, my muscles I hadn't used anything. I was ready, and I'm still in that place. Just show you. So I started teaching at Penn State 31 years ago, and over time, my teaching and my way of being has evolved into this. This is the trailer for my class. Twice a week for 15 weeks in a semester, 2 semesters a year. So that's 60 classes per year. You could watch 5 years of classes, and not a single class is ever the same. And they're not the same because I'm bringing other people up, or talking to people from some other part of the world. I'm saying something different. Students say something different. Everything has a different way of being in the world. So that's kind of a sense. I'm going to teach sociology differently. And so I go into my classroom. So I tell my students, if you want facts, look it up on your own. But that's not my job. If you want information, if you want definitions to sociology terms, look it up on your own. I teach a class on racism, like race and ethnicity and culture. My students never receive a definition of race, ethnicity, and culture. Because there are so many definitions out there, I said, if you want. So what I decided as a result of that, well, my job is to inspire. I want to inspire them. And I'm here in Korea, and I'm, giving a number of talks and doing a couple television things and so on. But that's not why I'm in Korea. I'm in Korea to listen to Koreans. Last night I had a conversation with a journalist who had interviewed me a year ago in one of your stations, and I said, can we have dinner? And I just want to talk to you. I want to hear from you. I want to interview you. And she had spent 3 years living in Canada, and I said, you're one of those people. Like, you have something to say. Like, you really do. You've lived in these two worlds. I want to pick your brain, right? That's why I teach. That's my motivation, to grow. I want to answer those difficult questions of life. I'd love to hear questions from students. Yeah, wait, is there a mic? Do we have a microphone? We do, right? So there are a couple things. One, the really rapid growth of people of Asian ancestry in the United States has taken off in the last 30 years, right? I mean, it's just it's profound. The influence of Asia, but also in the United States, and so there is a greater kind of assimilation of all aspects of Asian culture. And by the way, K culture has profoundly influenced that. I mean, this is the thing that I'm known for, here in Korea, talking about K culture, and the degree to which absolutely you Koreans have opened doorways in the United States that you really cannot imagine. And this is how this is the wave. The wave has crashed over, right? It's not a wave. It's actually a tsunami. You know how a tsunami wave is. It's invisible. You don't really see it. It's not like a wave that crashes like this. It's the one that comes this way. And it is profound. And so what's really important, most recently we have this, the hatred, because of COVID, hatred of Asians or attacks on Asians. And to which I want to say, and I was telling this to my journalist colleague last night, the journalists, because they have to tell a story, but I'm a sociologist, and I look at numbers. And you got 17 million people of Asian ancestry in the United States. And the attacks on Asians went from 2,500 to 3,800. So it's almost, like 100%, 80% increase or whatever, right? But most of those attacks are name calling, and so the actual physical violence is, 300, let's say, right? You got 17 million people, 300 attacks. If you read journalism, what you see is, this is like stop Asian hate, right? Here's another story of a woman of Chinese ancestry attacked with a club by somebody in San Francisco. Okay, well, that's a problem, right? But 300 out of 17 million people, it's like this. You have to. This is the beauty of sociology and numbers. You got to put numbers together. It's like flying on an airplane. The airplane isn't where you're going to have a problem. It's driving in a car to the airport. There's just an immense amount of coming together and assimilation, and especially because of Korea. I'm telling you. Right, in the past 5 to 6 years, the number of people who have just opened to Asia, because people don't know the difference between Koreans and Chinese or Vietnamese and Cambodia. I mean, this is not the Taiwanese. I mean, whatever. But Korea's opened certain doorways that is like really profound. So yeah, I find that. Now there are these kinds of things, right? But both these videos were from 4 years ago. And in 4 years, because of Korea, once again, because of K-pop in particular, and K-dramas, It's like there is a lot more really people kind of blending. I'm seeing it among my students. So, and I have a big class, so I see that. So that's what I would. You got it. That is a brilliant question right there. You just asked one, right? And what did you say? You know what you say is like, you said how. How do you ask a good question, right? And how opens me up to I can answer. Now, once you put it in, I'm here. I'm in this big stage, right? You ask how. Now, how? I can go over here and answer. I can go here and answer. There are so many ways I can answer that. And a good question is one that offers people the opportunity to answer it in a dozen different ways. You know, what do you imagine to be a good question? Like not a closed-ended question. If you ask a question that's like can be answered with one or two words, I mean, except in rare instances, right? That if you really want to get a conversation going, that's called a closed-ended question. How are you feeling today? Well, good, bad, okay, all right. Damn, now I got to ask another one. Okay, how are you feeling today? Well, what is it, how are you feeling yesterday? What do you think's going on that really shapes how you're feeling today? You're going to tell me how you're feeling, and you're going to say something about yourself. And that's a good question. And mind you, I'm terrible at asking questions, but I have a wife who's really good at it. That's her job. And so she's taught me. I'm a slow learner, but she's teaching me. Yeah, so a good question is one that people don't have the answer to. They can answer it in lots of different ways, and they have to stop and think about it. And you have no idea what they're going to say. That's a good question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. If you could pass the mic to someone else. Who else would like to ask a question? Thus far, we've had two awesome questions. Okay, so the first thing I guess I would say is, first off, it's not that different in the United States, okay? Really, your system here is really not that different than my system. Most teachers in my university teach the way most teachers teach here. Most students are the same. Most students, they expect to go in the classroom and take notes, and then they, the whole thing. I mean, this is what it is. I think if you're a student, and you have this feeling that I want more, like I just don't feel, I feel like there's something else, there's something calling me. Like there's a way of thinking, there's a way of understanding, there's something that's calling me. Just ask yourself what that is. What do I really want to learn? Do I even know what I want to know or what I want to learn? And so just lay in bed at night. Turn the lights off and just lay in bed very still and think about the fact that you're going to die and you're going to go through the light all by yourself and no one's going to be along with you. You're not taking your parents, your pets, your friends, nothing. You are all alone. And that could happen any moment. And then ask yourself, what do I want to know before that happens? What do I really want to know? And if you don't have an answer, then you ask yourself, how is it that I don't have an answer?
학생들의 질문에 기뻐하는 샘 리처드 교수의 모습을 보는 내내 미소가 지어졌는데요. 여러분, 오늘 강연은 어떻게 보셨나요? 1시간이 넘는 강의 원본은 아래 고정 댓글을 통해 확인하실 수 있습니다. 오늘도 함께 해주셔서 감사합니다.